We go. Buongiorno, this is Ed in Southern California, and our program today is featuring a Milano-based Laura Sinatra, and also Dave Levine, who's a fellow U.S. guy, and he's coming to us from Norfolk, Virginia. Welcome, Laura. Welcome, Dave.
Thanks, Ed.
Thank you.
So this is Global TV Talk Show. This is the outgrowth of our 25 years of doing live meetings in different cities, aimed always about global HR and talent management. And I learned about starting around 10 or 12 years ago that EAP, in other words, taking care of people, sounds like a no-brainer, doesn't it? But it's really good engagement policy. So EAP means employee assistance plans, right? So in yesterday's meeting, which will be October 6th, yesterday, today's October 7th, we focused on Hamburg, Germany for the first time. And we had an EAP leader, Matthias Kruger, who's the leader of the executive board of EAPA in Europe. No, in Germany, I guess. Right, Dave?
Right.
Yeah, and thank you for the introduction. He was telling me that in Germany, and probably where you are too, I'm going to ask you specifically about the government social program covers. Isn't there an umbrella coverage for everybody of taking care of people? And how does that impact what you do as a private enterprise?
If I understand,
the government already has a social program, right?
For healthcare?
Or is that just Germany? Yeah, personal health care, employee assistance, well-being.
No, not really.
Okay.
At least in Italy, we have a very strong healthcare system, but health. So
medical. Yeah.
It is related to medical assistance, to hospitalizations. Obviously, within hospitalizations, if you address mental health issues, it has to somehow has to do with disorders, so with clinical issues that impact on the person, and in this respect, the Italian health care system covers this as an umbrella, but there is a huge and big and organic, I would say, difference with an EAP, because in EAP is a program that somehow takes the person as a whole and supports the issue with a global approach. So it's not only related to emotional disorders or emotional fatigue. So as to say, it doesn't have to do only with anxiety and depression. A person can also come up with conflicts with a colleague, conflicts within family, a moment of transition, or even more pragmatic issues like difficulties with the property, with the consumer issue. So legal stuff, legal and fiscal guidelines that are required. And so basically an EAP is like a pit stop, right? We all rush through life, and then all of a sudden change, a sudden little incident, or even a wish to have things differently, urge the person to ask for help. And that help can be clinical, psychological, but also pragmatic. So as you see, it can cover clinical issues, an EAP, but not only. And that is the added value. So the added value of an EAP is actually to be pragmatic, immediate, and all inclusive. Whatever happens to you, you have someone who thinks with you and goes through that issue with you.
Thank you. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is Laura Sinatra in Milano, which is in the north of Italy. She's a business partner with EAP Italia World, serving employers in Italy, Switzerland, and internationally. Laura has one son and a husband, and as you can tell, she's an expert in this product. She's in Milan, as I said. She provides organizational culture consultancy and soft skills training for employers on topics including, I'm reading this, including effective communication, public speaking, emotional competences, work-life balance, whatever that means, parenting and change and stress and time management. So EAP Italia World. Welcome, Laura Sinatra. And we were introduced to her by Dave Levine, our old friend and co-sponsor. Welcome, Dave.
Thanks, Ed. In Norfolk, Virginia this week, as you'd said, because EAPA's annual conference has restarted. You know, as many conferences are doing, EAPA, Employee Assistance Practitioners Association, has restarted its in-person conferences, and they chose Norfolk, Virginia as the kickoff place. So it's a chance to get together and talk with like minds, not only from the US, but from around the world. If I may go back and ask Laura, and I've learned from you on this, Laura, how accessible, I know in many countries outside of English-speaking countries, behavioral health is hard to access because it's typically not reimbursed by the Social Security or National Health Plan. How accessible is that, and how does that impact the EAP services in Italy?
No, in fact, even here, it's not reimbursed. So a person who requires a therapy, a long-term therapy, has to be able to pay it for him or herself. So, and this is why a lot of people in Italy, as long as it's made covered by some sort of governmental hospitalization, then there is typically a brief follow-up outside hospital. There are here and there, there is territorial support at a lower price, but typically it does not cover a long-term therapy. So those cases that require long-term therapy typically need to pay it for their own. And for all the other ones, may I give you some figures?
Yes.
So before pandemic, it was said that 1 person out of 4 would suffer once in a life a depression. And that's out of this 1 person out of 4, actually, only 1/3 of the people would actually accept or be able to undergo a long-term therapy. This means that out of this 1 of 4, bless you, out of this 1 of 4, 2/3 would either drop out of therapy after some time or would not even ask for therapy. The reasons behind this are obviously cultural stigma, but also money, budgeting. It's not affordable sometimes. And now the question is, how does the EAP cover that? Obviously, an EAP is solution focused and brief and cannot replace a long-term therapy. But an EAP strengthens sometimes the determination with which a person accepts to pay that money. So we sort of, the EAP identifies a percentage of the population who would not typically go to a psychologist or go to a counseling or go to a therapy, because it's free. So the fact that it's free, that the employee doesn't pay for it, or that the family member don't pay for it, first of all, takes away that first fear of stigma. And the first thing of, I have to pay for something for which I'm actually then labeled as a fool person. It takes it all away. The person receives immediate, quick help within 48 hours, even less, 24 hours. The person has someone to talk to, has the first session. So this means we are there immediately and for free.
And so this is in
confidential
person,
way.
speaking one-on-one in person, or is it done like on video like we're doing?
Well, with the pandemic, a lot of things have changed. Before pandemic, counseling was delivered basically only in person. And with the pandemic, obviously virtual, telephonic, in video. Now, after pandemic, most of the employees ask still to have video calls rather than going to the counselor, so the psychotherapist. In person.
Yeah, because, you know, in the US, it's all the rage now, BetterHelp.com and related things like that. Is there that kind of free, accessible counseling like BetterHelp.com is in the US?
I think so. In my experience, interesting, coming to this EAP conference, you see BetterHelp as one of the primary sponsors, Lyra, Talkspace, these new telehealth oriented providers that have positioned themselves as EAP. Whereas more traditional EAP, where in-person counseling and phone counseling was most common, have also repositioned themselves to become much more expert at telehealth. There is a company based in France called Utelmed, and it has been focused on expats and around the world, and have multi-language counselors and telehealth. They have excelled at telehealth for many years. And they too, for another example, in Europe, have come into their own. Another organization, Hero Health in the UK, has acquired a traditional EAP, Validium, and have integrated the technology with more traditional EAP. So I think that phenomenon that we have seen shift in the US, we also see shifting globally.
So is this the people behind all these telehealth things? Are they doctors or are they business, you know, financiers, or both?
Both. In that case of Utelmed, it's run by a psychiatrist, Bernard, blanking on his last name. In other cases, it's business folks who see an opportunity, who see the increased awareness and appreciation for mental health issues and want to capitalize on that from a business perspective. Their hearts may well be in the right place, but they try to bring their business acumen to make behavioral health services more accessible. And I think that's the case with Lyra, huge, very well capitalized organization now that's really disrupting the industry. Spring Health, also run by a woman out of Boston who herself is not a clinician, but has a heart for behavioral health and is doing a great job with Spring Health. So I think it's a mix of both clinicians. It reminds me of the days of earlier days of addiction and addiction treatment. You see a lot of people touched by addiction, and in these days touched by mental health issues, and they've developed a heart for the issue and become advocates for it, and in some cases extend services through a business like a Spring Health or a Lyra.
So what I want to say is that I was introduced to this whole segment because of the employee relocation business, which is my background, meaning that couples, particularly dual career couples who go on a corporate assignment, usually have issues and problems. In fact, one of our speakers in another conference Yvonne Quay from World Bank Family Network wrote a book called Whose Career Is It? Yours, Mine, or Ours? Because of the impacts. And in fact, she was just on our London conference last week. So that's my background. And there was a large company in Caterpillar at the time had issues around the world with failure, disrupted assignments, people going on assignments and dealing with family issues at the same time. It's a powder keg. And that's where EAP came in. And I think that's how you and I first met, Dave, many, many years ago.
Exactly.
This is also cases.
Go ahead, Laura.
Yeah, this is also cases that come to the EAP. So it's not only clinical cases. It's, as I said before, sometimes it's situations in your life that are just overwhelming or too stressful, or all of a sudden you realize you have a need, and you had not imagined before a decision that you could have that need, and that comes often with relocations of couples and families. I remember there was a family some year ago, a couple of years before pandemic, and they were constantly moving around Europe because of the assignments of the husband, and the woman said, I now have developed a good habit of adaptation, life in hotels. I know how hotels work. I know how I can choose them. I know what I expect from services, laundry, whatever, that typically a tourist would not ask for. But I know everything of, of the hotels now. And when I go shopping, typically I avoid looking at all those shops that sell furniture or decorations for the home, for the apartments, etc. And when she realized how her habit of shopping had changed over the years, that was the moment when she realized she was fed up with that life, and that she wanted a change. She wanted to have again one place where to live. So even this is not a clinical case, right? It has more to do with an existential choice, a couple thing, something that
Well, and if I may
happens.
jump in, dealing with the stresses of the relationships that have to change, and
Yes.
the worry about making those changes, and then what effect, and it's a maelstrom of like a tornado effect all of a sudden if you start something in motion. If you don't have, if you have a boss or a coworker that's not of that same mindset, or haven't reached that maturity yet. Would you agree?
Exactly, and it's a maelstrom. Exactly, that was her perception, and the worry related to her kids, for example, who had changed so many schools before. So it's big topics for a family, and sometimes they just don't know who they can talk to, who has enough, let's say, professionality, and at the same time a capability to be pragmatic. This is something an EAP would do, right? Because otherwise, typically a professional would start to make the analysis, well, in the kindergarten, when you were a kid, and grabs back in the past. Instead, people need today's solutions. They need to, here and now, to look at their issue, not to go back in the past and start to analyze how they actually got married to that man that seems like the grandfather, and that
I know you're dealing with a minefield of problems, and who needs it? That's it.
no. The thing is, something else conveys the EAP. Yes, you can face everything. An EAP helps you identify your topic, and then it helps you to focus on that topic, and then this focusing helps you actually to see that you can face it. So that maelstrom that you talked about before starts to be fragmented, and all of a sudden you see those little small steps that you can make, and confidently say, okay, now I see my need, I see something I can do, and I see the light out of the tunnel. David is smiling.
No, I think you're right. The expat, actually, in our industry, services for expats is where we got our start. FGI, Warren Chappell and FGI, a Canadian-based firm. That's where they cut their teeth on global EAP, and I sort of taught the industry that it's not only psychosocial issues, but social issues and cross-cultural adjustments and all the stress that are inherent in an expat assignment. It's not just clinical depression, anxiety, stress, relationship issues. I think that's taught us well. And you jump forward, and you have to. Expats are only less than 1% of the whole work population. So if you're interested in reaching people, that expat is a needy, inherently stressful subset of the employee population, but there's so few of them proportionately. So we're trying to migrate these services and bring accessible behavioral health services to even more people who may not be facing cross-cultural adjustments, but definitely are impacted by behavioral health issues in their own lives.
Well, and the population of expats in general is upscale, higher pay, more influential vis-a-vis company operations in a foreign place. So the companies tend to spend more money on these people.
Typically, yeah. You read about Ford or GM relocating folks to Tokyo and vice versa, exchanges in blue collar car manufacturing. But I think overall, you're right. That's it's much more higher paid, influential. Start up a business in a local country, involve the locals, and then hand over the leadership of that after a couple of years once that company is established there.
May I think with my hat as EAP provider at the same time, I should say, even if it's people who are very well paid, that doesn't necessarily give them all the resources that they need. Also to wove into the cultural environment that they get in touch with, and sometimes the perception that is shared from both point of views. So on one hand, them in their role, and then from those collaborators and team members who work with them, is that they are somehow detached. Because after some time, this relocation has an impact on behavior, on how the person is actually able to build up a relationship. Because it's easier to stay a little bit detached, to not put roots in a place, to not engage in deeper relationships, because it's always a stress, to engage, and at the same time to disengage when you move further. So at least in Italy, for example, the need for assistance was because there was a need to know how to set up a relationship in the here and now, and to indulge a little bit in that relationship. Otherwise, as I said before, it's moving, and when a person gets too used to moving, then it's also difficult to stay and listen.
Well, this is a great conversation. I'm sorry that it has to end in about 5 minutes, but I thank you very much, Laura. Please come back and do this again. My plan is to do another Italy program with adding in a few people and companies, 30 days out and then 30 days beyond. And anyway, do you happen to know a lady in Milan area by the name of Miriam Calligarin?
No.
She used to be an executive, a marketing executive with Mercedes-Benz and some other companies, and now she's a coach, executive coach. And she's going to be in this next program also. So I'd like to introduce you and welcome you to that, and also debut. But I thank you. This has really been a smart conversation. Thank you, Laura. Thank you, Dave,
You're
for doing
welcome.
this. Dave, would you like to sum up about your activities in the world of EAP? Are you moving on to other countries, other associations?
Yeah, well, Global Care Experts provides crisis response, trauma response, and counseling services outside the U.S. to multinationals. And I work with R3 and R3 Continuum and do their work outside the U.S. The whole mission is to foster healthier workplaces through focusing on behavioral health. And this month, coming up in a few days, October 10th being World Mental Health Day, it's an acknowledgement that mental health is important, and we need to continue to increase awareness, as the pandemic has done. As sort of a silver lining. People appreciate that more, but we need to continue to work at not only increasing awareness, but bringing those services, making services more accessible to people in need.
World Mental Health Day is coming up this weekend.
October 10th.
Oh,
How is that a day did you, Ed?
I've just been out of touch.
I know you'll see some promotions on it coming up. World Mental Health Day. It's been going on for a few years. Yeah.
I think I'm going to promote this program and yesterday's program and even the London program we just did, October 3, under an umbrella of celebrating World Mental Health Day or week or whatever. Laura, so what are you going to do this weekend? What's happening in Milan for you?
Oh, well, I must say that I'm at home with COVID.
Oh,
so I need to wait to be released with the test on Monday. But I can tell you that my mates and all the citizens in Milan can enjoy a wonderful sunny October weekend in Milan. There is a lot to do. Milan is a city that is flourishing at the moment. So whoever listens to us, they can enjoy a city that is pretty alive. There is lots going on in theaters, in shows, in exhibitions. Come along.
yes, yes. We have produced live meetings in Milan 3 or 4 times, but not for 6 or 7 years now.
Laura, answer this question. Is it Paris or Milan, the real capital, fashion capital of the world?
Well, Milan. Not even Rome. No, Milan is the city. David, this is not a question. It goes without saying. It's Milan forever.
So if we have, let's see, less than 5 minutes, I'd need to jump off and get my head into the next topic here, next program. But there's just been an election in your country, Laura, and this is not a political show, but it's of note. I take note that it's a lady who has been an outsider and far right. But it doesn't seem like it's a dangerous far right, according to the news reports that I've been reading, as compared to history a long time ago.
Well, hopefully not.
Yeah.
Hopefully not.
I mean, I would think that people in your profession would be alarmed at this development, being so people-oriented, because the historical elements of far right in Italy we're restrictive and punishing people rather than be helpful to people.
Mhm. At the same time, I think that I cannot predict the future, but hopefully there will be sort of a mitigation compared to the campaign that this party has run for election. I also say Italy is a very particular country, and sometimes we surprise our neighbors and the entire world with decisions, and other times we surprise the world because these decisions are then interpreted in a completely different way. So I think that these current times really require strategies and solutions that are diplomatic, and probably these first steps also show that there is a wish to talk, a wish to listen, a wish to mitigate a little bit those extreme positions with when an election was done.
Laura Sinatra, this has been a real education for me, and thank you for speaking to my audience. Dave Levine, thanks very much for doing this again.
Pleasure.
And so
Thank you.
Stay tuned, everybody. The show will go worldwide in just a few hours. Okay, this is Ed signing off in Southern California. In fact, I'm in Palm Desert, California right now. And Dave, you're in Norfolk, Virginia. Laura Sinatra in Milano. And thank you so much for being on Global TV Talk Show. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Thanks, Laura.